So recently my life has been feeling like some type of movie where I'm obviously the main character because this is my life, it is my movie, but it feels like everything is connected and each scene is sort of setting up for the next scene. Like there's foreshadowing of the future scene in the present scene, and there's dots that are being connected, and I'm like, am I manifesting this? Am I just becoming psychic? What is it? I'm not really sure. It could be partially just like whatever's in the air and the season we're going through, whether it's astrologically or just collectively. But I also have been doing one thing very different for the past 4 days, and I've seen the most acceleration in the past 4 days, and that is my meditation challenge. I know I've talked about it a lot on Snapchat, but I don't think I've talked about it that much on here. But I decided to do the 30-day Joe Dispenza meditation challenge. It's not something that he came up with. I actually just saw someone on TikTok do it with their friends, so I decided to copy and paste basically what they did and do it with me and my friends and everyone on Snapchat who's also participating. So like I was saying, I have noticed the most synchronicity, weird things being connected in the past 4 days since doing this challenge. So I don't know, it could be just life, but I have a feeling it's probably this challenge. Hi, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. This video is all about the 30-day Joe Dispenza challenge that I'm doing with my friend and also everyone on Snapchat. So even though I'm already 4 days into the challenge, I decided let's do a video at the beginning and I'll share with you everything that I'm doing. So if you want to do it along with me, you can. We're only 4 days in, so there's still the rest of October to do this challenge. But by the time you're seeing this, we will probably be 6 to 7 days in, but it's okay. You can still do it and just start a week late. It's not really going to make that big of a difference if you do it into November. And since I've already been doing it for 4 days, I can share with you the things that have been manifesting and happening in my life, the things that I've noticed from doing the meditations, what has been helping while doing the meditations, and so on and so forth. So to start, obviously the challenge is 30 days of specifically Joe Dispenza meditations. And if you guys aren't familiar with who Joe Dispenza is, definitely look him up on YouTube, watch some of his interviews. He has a bunch of books, meditations, and even retreats on getting brain and heart coherence to manifest your brighter future so that you don't keep continuing to manifest your past circumstances and situations into the present and the future. I found out about his work, I want to say like 2017, like pretty early on. I read 1 or 2 of his books, either You Are the Placebo, I think I read that one, and I may have started the Becoming Supernatural book. I don't know if I ever finished it, but I did listen to them audio wise, so I feel like it's always better for me, at least when I read a book, like read it as opposed to listening to it audio wise. So I might need to refresh and reread some of his books, but basically he explains like the science behind manifesting and how we create our own reality, but like in a way that's not only spiritual. He explains it in the way that is also backed by science, which really opened my eyes to understanding manifestation so much better. So I definitely trust his meditations and the processes he's used because he has so many testimonials of people who have really changed their life, healed terminal illnesses, changed their money situations, found their life partners, all because they used his techniques to manifest a brighter version of themselves and a better future. If that isn't enough to make me want to take meditation seriously, I don't know what else will. So that is why I'm doing this. And for the challenge, I actually bought one of his meditations off of his website. It was only $20, but then my friend found his morning and evening meditation for free on Apple Music, which we both had. So I was like, good thing we did not buy that one first, because the one that I bought is called Changing Boxes and I couldn't find that on Apple Music or for free. So I feel a little better for purchasing that one and not the one that we were about to purchase, which was the morning and night meditations, which you can get for free. I think he also has them on YouTube, but the sound quality is just so much better on Apple Music. I don't know if they have them on Spotify, but I decided because there is a specific morning and a specific evening meditation to do, I'm gonna do those ones instead of the Changing Boxes meditation that I bought. I might still do that one here and there and throw it in, but my reasoning for this is because the challenge that I decided to do is 1 meditation every morning when I wake up and then 1 meditation every night when I go to sleep. And his morning and evening meditations on Apple Music are only 20 minutes long, which is definitely definitely doable. I know he has other meditations that are like an hour long, which I am not ready for yet. I still need to master a 20-minute meditation without my mind drifting everywhere in every place. But so far, they have been working. I am still so new to meditating regularly that it is a learning curve for me, especially with these meditations, because I feel like they are more advanced than other guided meditations that I just have found on YouTube. But I appreciate that because it is a challenge and I want to be challenged. So I'm not complaining about that. I think it's good that I am being challenged not only to be meditating but also in these meditations. And to keep track of my daily meditations, I have a note on my phone or my iPad. It's also on my computer. All of my iCloud things are connected. I made it specifically to hold us accountable, and that you have to mark a check mark off every morning and every night if you did the meditation. If you didn't do it, you can't check it off. And I don't know why, but for me, checking something off is just so satisfying. And then at the bottom, I have the manifestations that I am manifesting, the manifestations that my friend is manifesting, and then I also added the changing boxes meditation in case we want to do that, and then a link to the Apple Music version of his morning and evening meditations. So everything is condensed here in one note, so we can keep track of the days and hold ourselves accountable, but we can also check off our manifestations as they happen, and we can find our meditations all in one place. And then I also made another note to keep track of all the synchronicities and manifestations that happen each day throughout this month, because what I have realized so far, and I started this note actually today, I wasn't even going to do this, but I realized, oh my gosh, so many synchronicities and manifestations have happened in these 4 days that I didn't even plan on manifesting or think about manifesting or even hope to manifest. Like, it wasn't a thing in my mind, and I realized I want to keep track of that because then I can show all of the results and progress that I've made from this challenge that I wasn't expecting to even experience or make or have. But I think when you are aligning your energies with your higher self and the divine source, God, whatever, you're going to experience a lot of synchronicities that you wouldn't expect from your lower version of yourself or your ego self. And it's really exciting and really cool. So it's kind of also starting to get me into journaling a little bit, which is something that I really do want to get into. So this is like a good little gateway into that. And also in his morning meditation, there's a part where he puts the intention for us to receive synchronicities, signs from source in our daily life that let us know that we are aligned and manifesting whatever future that we want to have. So I feel like because he put that in the meditation, it almost automatically makes it so that you have to manifest signs and synchronicities that you wouldn't have expected otherwise, but are beautiful and lovely and exciting and connects you to source. So that being said, I didn't expect that to happen. Like, I hear it in the meditation and it's nice to hear and I'm like, oh, this is great. But when you're living your daily life, you kind of forget about it. And then when these things come up, you're like, oh, that's interesting. And even if you don't notice it in the moment, when you go to do your evening meditation, he brings it up in the evening meditation being like, reflect on your day. What things would you want to change or do differently? What things are you grateful for? Like, things like that. Those are not his exact words, but it makes you think about that in the evening meditation. Even if you go through the day and you're not really fully conscious of all of the synchronicities and signs, when you do the night meditation, then it comes back into your brain and you're like, oh my god, that was an interesting synchronicity. That was an interesting sign. Now for me, I've definitely noticed it throughout the day, but there's also times where in the past 4 days, I've gone to do the evening meditation and I'm like, oh, I wasn't super aware and conscious in that moment, but that was definitely a sign and a synchronicity. So I feel like doing the morning meditation and the night meditation in combination together is when you're going to see the most results. So I highly suggest doing those for the 30-day duration. I feel like he obviously made them to go together for a reason. Also, the nice thing about journaling all the signs and synchronicities that you experience throughout the day, you'll have it documented so that at the end of the challenge, you'll be able to go back and look at it all in order, written out. Oh my god, that was terrifying. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb and that just, I don't even know what that was. Is it an Amber Alert? Like, my nervous system needs to re-regulate now because that was terrifying. It says this is the test of National Wireless Emergency Alert System. Well, that test was a wake-up call. Back to what I was saying, but the really nice part about having each day's synchronicity, signs, thoughts on this meditation challenge written down in order is you get to look back at it at the end and really read through and see all of your progress from start to finish, as opposed to just trying to remember like, what did I manifest, this and that. Because what if the things that you wrote down that you wanted to manifest were good for the version of you that started this challenge, but what if you manifest things that are so much better and that change the trajectory of your life into a completely different timeline where those manifestations don't even make sense anymore, and you manifested things that are just way more aligned with who you really are and want to be, and you can read it all out in your journal and reflect on it and be like, oh, well, you know, I thought I wanted to manifest this amount of money doing this specific job, but actually I manifested a totally new career making a totally more expansive income. Who knows? The options are endless, and when we are connecting with Source, God, the universe, we never know what could come from that. And that's like the beauty of actually journaling it all down for you to see at the end. I guess my reasoning for saying to journal everything down is because you might think that the goal of this is to manifest that specific thing that you think you want, but then at the end when you read back on what you journaled, you might find that that was like manifesting pennies, and what you actually experienced through this meditation challenge was so much more vast, and there was so much more change within you that made you become a better version of yourself without ever needing the thing that you thought you wanted to manifest. So I hope that is making sense to you guys, but I think it's really important for us to document all the highs and lows of this journey to look back on. So originally, I wasn't sure which meditations I was going to do. I thought I was going to do the changing boxes meditation and then another meditation just off of his website. But as I told you earlier, I'm going to be sticking with the morning and evening meditation every day, and maybe I'll throw in the changing boxes here and there as a bonus. But I feel like I want to keep everything consistent, and I don't want there to be too many variables, sort of like how you would do in a science experiment or some type of trial of sorts, where I want to keep the variables more controlled, and I want to be able to say, okay, it was these two meditations that I did morning and night, and this is, you know, the results that came from it after 30 days. Not to say that I can't add on the changing boxes meditation if I want to do like a midday meditation for any reason, but I'm gonna keep it with the two free ones that you can get on Apple Music so that I can share with you guys in Snapchat, like, this is my results with this. If you want to do it, you can do it. And then maybe later on, when I feel like I'm more advanced after this challenge, I can do some different paid ones from his site, like the changing boxes one or some other ones that he has, and do another 30-day challenge with that, or a 21-day challenge, or whatever I want to do. But just to keep things organized, we're sticking with this. And so far, I really do like the morning and evening meditations. Like I said, they're not really beginner level meditations in my opinion, but I do feel like they're challenging and they're pushing me to become more present, to be more aware of the energy around me, which is something that I've never been able to really do before. I have just recently, like in the past year, started becoming aware of the energy in my body. And so I feel like because I am aware and can be aware of the energy circulating in my body and lightly around my body, I'm learning how to be able to be aware of the energy surrounding me and in the room through these meditations. But like I said, it's not easy, and I don't know if I'm doing it correctly, so I'll probably have to do a little more research on that. But I feel like the more I do it and the more I get into it, the more I'm gonna understand it. And actually last night during the evening meditation, I did have a slight realization about feeling the energy around me. So I feel like the more I do this, the closer I will get to understanding and feeling the energetic field that he talks about so much. Okay, let me share with you just a few of the manifestations and synchronicities that I experienced thus far. I mean, I wrote down like quite a bit, but I want to share this one specific synchronicity that I feel like was very interesting to me. So basically, I was on a hike with my friend the other day. She's also doing the challenge with me, and we stopped to get smoothies before the hike, and we ran into this girl that we knew from high school in the local area, just like mutual friends, who, I mean, I haven't seen her in like a year, but the last time I ran into her with this friend as well, so it was kind of just like an interesting correlation, and we just had like a quick chat, nothing crazy. So then me and my friend, we go on the hike and we start having a conversation about how weird it is running into people, and that even in places like New York City, I've ran into people. I've ran into people in LA. Obviously, when you're in your hometown, you're more likely to run into people, but we were just mostly talking about how weird and awkward it can be running into people, especially if you dated them. Obviously, if it's like a friend from high school or like a mutual friend, it's not that weird, but we got into a conversation of like, oh my god, how would you feel if you ran into your ex, this and that, and then how would you feel like if you ran into somebody you used to talk to or dated. And me and her have both experienced running into people we've dated, people we've talked to. We haven't ran into any of our like specific exes yet, but I was like, I don't know how I'd feel. I don't know if I'd like be okay with it. I told her about how I drove past my ex's car last February and I was like shook. So that being said, after having that conversation, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is manifesting anything or this is whatever. I'm like, okay, we had that conversation, moving on. So literally the next day, I didn't run into an ex, but I did run into a guy who I used to talk to, and I have run into him before. It's not like super weird for me to run into him because he literally lives down the street from me and we go to the same park. So it's not like a complete crazy thing for this to happen. But I hadn't run into him in like 6 months. The last time I ran into him was literally on the same street. And I just had this weird feeling when I was about to go for my daily walk, which I go for all the time. So actually, no, was it 6 months ago that I ran into him? The last time I ran into him was May. So I know there's always a chance that I could run into him because we pass by each other's homes, we go to the same park, like it's always possible. So it's not that weird, but it hadn't happened in months. So I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't thinking it was gonna happen. But I did have a weird feeling before I walked out the door to go for the walk. I had like this little dress on because it was super hot out and I didn't feel like changing into workout clothes. I was just like, I'm gonna go with the flow. Before I left, I was like, should I change into shorts and a t-shirt just in case I sweat? And then I was like, no, like I'm gonna wash this dress anyway. Like I don't have that many more warm days to wear it. So then I go out and I'm like, okay, well I look nice, like whatever. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna run into this guy who I used to date. But lo and behold, I do. And it was super awkward because my nervous system just was like dysregulated and triggered, and I was like, oh my god. Probably because we were talking about the day before how awkward it is to run into people. So in my body, I'm like, it's awkward to run into people. And then I acted awkward, which it's fine. Like it's not that big a deal. We did an awkward wave and then I walked away and I'm like, oh my god, I am so triggered. Kid you not, 5 minutes later, Rachel calls me. And like we talk every so often, but she called me specifically to say, how are you? Like I wanted to do a mental health check. I'm like, do you have telepathy? She's like, I don't know why. I'm like, well, my mental health was chilling. Like I was so good until literally 5 minutes ago when my nervous system got dysregulated because I was triggered. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I feel like you sensed it and then you just called me to see. And she's like, I mean, maybe I wasn't thinking about that. And I'm like, this is too coincidental for it not to be a synchronicity. And Rachel's like the best. She's like, okay, well, I learned these breathing exercises in acting, so let's do it. And then like, obviously like that was self-soothing and then I was good, but I was just like, oh my god, what crazy synchronicities just happened. Like not only do I feel like I kind of foreshadowed me running into someone I dated, but then also having the telepathy of my best friend to check in on me, like to make sure I was good after. I'm not gonna say it's 100% only due to these meditations, but I feel like life was pretty boring maybe a week or two ago, and now it's looking a little bit connected and synchronistic and interesting. So I feel like these meditations are definitely adding something, and that was just like one little example, but I still have, I don't know, I mean like 26 days left of this challenge, so who knows what can happen if that was just one of the many things that happened in the 4 days since starting it. So I will definitely update you guys either throughout this challenge or at the end when I have all of my synchronicities and manifestations written out in my little journal note. But if you end up doing it, please let me know on Snapchat or Instagram or here in the comments, and I will see you in my next video next week. I love you guys so much. Bye.